The title of this story is The Last Meal at Terrence's Diner. The story opens with a traveler named James, who's on a long drive across the country. He's exhausted after hours on the road and decides to pull over when he sees a small, glowing diner on the side of the highway. The sign flickers, barely readable, but he can make out the words, Terrence's Diner. It's isolated, sitting in the middle of nowhere, but he's too hungry and tired to care. As he steps in, the diner feels oddly frozen in time. Everything looks as though it's from the 1950s. Checkered floors, vinyl booths, jukebox playing old tunes. The staff, however, seems unusual. There's a single waitress named Marlene, with an unsettlingly blank stare, and an old man at the counter, presumably Terrence. There's no one else in sight. Tension building. James orders a simple meal, eggs, toast, and coffee. But everything feels off. The air is unnaturally cold, and the radio crackles with static before strange noises echo from it, like whispers or distant screams. Marlene's behavior becomes increasingly bizarre, always standing too close or staring at James for too long. Terrence, the cook, never seems to leave his spot by the stove, muttering incoherent words under his breath. James asks if the diner gets a lot of customers, to which Marlene responds in a monotone, "Just the ones passing through," her eyes reflecting a strange glint of hunger. The discovery. James gets a bad feeling and decides to leave after eating, but as he stands up, he notices something strange. His reflection in the diner's mirrored walls doesn't match his movements. In fact, the reflection seems older, tired, and almost decayed. Panicking, he turns back to Marlene, who is suddenly blocking the door, her eyes wide and empty. Marlene whispers, "No one leaves once they've had a taste." He rushes to the door, but it won't budge. Terrence is still by the stove, but his face now looks grotesque, melted almost, as though it's a mask hiding something monstrous. Horror unveils. James stumbles back to the booth, trying to find another way out. That's when he notices the customers he hadn't seen earlier. Old, ghostly figures sitting in the booths, staring straight ahead, their eyes hollow and sunken. Their mouths are filled with what looks like human remains. Marlene approaches slowly, her body now grotesque and twisted, like a puppet on strings. "Everyone eats here," she says. "Everyone becomes part of the diner." James looks down at his half-eaten meal, horrified to realize that what he's consumed was not eggs or toast, but something far more sinister. Pieces of the souls who had come before him. The diner feeds on lost travelers, turning them into its next meal, their spirits doomed to stay forever. The escape. Or not. Desperate, James tries to smash through a window, but his hands pass through it like air. He realizes with horror that he's no longer in the diner he walked into. This place exists outside of normal reality. Marlene leans in and whispers, "You're part of the diner now." The last image we see is James looking into the reflection again, but now he's older, worn and rotting, just like the others. He is now part of the diner, eternally trapped, feeding off the next lost soul who stumbles into this cursed place. This horror story is about the eternal diner. The story begins with a man named Ethan, driving late at night through a rural area. He's been on the road for hours, and the landscape around him is pitch black except for his car's headlights. He's starving, tired, and beginning to feel disoriented. Just when he's about to give up and sleep in his car, he spots a flickering neon sign that reads, "Molly's Diner." The diner looks vintage, and there's a comforting glow coming from inside. Ethan pulls over, eager for a hot meal and some rest. As he steps in, the bell above the door jingles, and he's greeted by a soft voice. "Welcome to Molly's." Unsettling first impressions. Inside, the diner is almost too perfect. It's immaculately clean, the booths are plush and red, and the air smells like fresh coffee. A waitress named Molly, who introduces herself as the owner, is the only person in the diner. She's friendly, but there's something strange about her smile. It's almost too wide, and her eyes seem unusually reflective, like they catch too much light. Ethan sits at a booth near the window and orders a simple burger and fries. Molly assures him it'll be the best meal he's ever had. As Ethan waits, he realizes the atmosphere is eerily quiet. The diner has no music, no background noise, and no customers other than him. The neon sign outside flickers, casting strange shadows through the window. As he sips his coffee, Ethan notices old black and white photos lining the walls. They seem to show past customers, all smiling, but there's something off about them. Their eyes, like Molly's, are too reflective, almost predatory. The perfect meal. Molly brings out the burger, fries, and a milkshake. The food looks and smells incredible. Ethan takes a bite, and it's the best burger he's ever tasted. As he eats, he feels an overwhelming sense of satisfaction, almost too much, like it's not just hunger being sated but something deeper. As he finishes, Molly leans over and asks, "How was it?" Her voice is unnervingly sweet. Ethan compliments the food, but now something feels very wrong. The quietness of the diner presses down on him, and his stomach begins to churn, not from the food, but from an eerie sensation, like he's not alone. He glances at the old photos again. They've changed. The people in the pictures are no longer smiling, and their reflective eyes seem to follow him. A growing nightmare. Suddenly, Ethan's vision begins to blur. His heart races as he tries to stand, but his legs feel like lead. He stumbles toward the door, but Molly is there, blocking his path. Her smile has stretched unnaturally wide, her eyes glowing eerily. "Leaving already," she whispers, though her voice now sounds distorted, almost echoing. Ethan stammers, asking what's happening to him. Molly's face twists, no longer human. "You've had a taste of the diner. You're one of us now." Her voice changes, no longer friendly. There's a hunger behind it. Ethan looks back at the photos on the wall, horrified. He recognizes one of the faces now. It's his. His picture is there, grinning widely with reflective, empty eyes. Panicked, he runs to the window, but the outside world looks different. The road is gone, replaced by an endless dark void. He realizes with growing dread that Molly's diner isn't a place on Earth. It's a trap, an endless cycle for those who wander in at night. The food was a lure, and now he's trapped like all the others before him, captured in those photos. Souls bound to the diner, forever feeding its insatiable hunger. The final revelation. Molly's voice echoes as the walls seem to close in. "This diner never runs out of customers," she says, stepping closer. "It's always hungry. And now, so are you." Ethan's vision fades, and the last thing he sees is Molly's wide, glowing eyes as everything goes dark. The scene ends with the flickering neon sign outside going dark for a moment, only to flicker back on, casting a soft glow over the empty highway. Another traveler will soon find their way to Molly's diner,